guys, welcome to Dimitra's Dishes. So today I'm going to teach you how to make a chocolate raspberry tart. Yes, you heard right, chocolate and raspberries all together in a tart. Very simple, very easy. Let me take you over the ingredients so we can get started. Of course, we need some fresh raspberries, a little bit of apricot jam. I know it's surprising, but it's not going to go in the tart. It's going to serve as the glaze for these raspberries so that they could glisten and shine, and apricot glaze is like the perfect thing for that. We need raspberry jam, and you could use any kind of raspberry jam you want. Doesn't matter if it has seeds or seeds are taken out, whatever, it doesn't matter. And just a little bit of it. You need chocolate biscotti. I love chocolate biscotti. Make it yourself. If you can't make it, get it from your favorite bakery, or if you can't find chocolate biscotti, use any kind of biscotti you like. It's really not a problem. I've melted a stick of butter in my pot. You need some high quality semi-sweet or dark chocolate. I'm using semi-sweet today. I have made this with all dark Belgian chocolate, and it's even better than the semi-sweet, but this is what I have on hand, and that's what I'm going to use. You could do half and half, like half semi-sweet, half dark, all semi-sweet, or all dark. It'll come out delicious either way. The main thing is you have to use really high quality chocolate. Belgian chocolate is my favorite. Callebaut being a Belgian chocolate brand, that is the one that we use at the bakery, and it is super chocolatey, very creamy and rich, and once you've had really good Belgian chocolate, you really will not be able to eat the cheap stuff. So get good quality chocolate if you can, and then of course you need some heavy cream and a tiny bit of salt. So I've melted my butter before I grind up my biscotti for the crust. I don't have non-stick spray, but if you do, you can go ahead and spray your tart pan. And we're using a 9-inch tart pan. You can use 9 or 9.5 inches. I haven't measured it. It looks 9 to 9.5 inches. I'm not sure, one of those. But we're just going to rub it with just a little bit of butter, so that way when it will make it easier to detach, even though the crust will have a lot of butter in it, but this is just extra insurance, right? So we're going to cut up our biscotti and put them in here and break them up until they are crumbs. We're going to pulse this until crumbs form. All right, so I'm just going to take out the stubborn big pieces. And these guys, they're not going to go to waste. These are going to go in my coffee, and they're going to be delicious. So to these crumbs, I'm just going to add my melted butter. And I'll do it while it's running, and then it's just going to make this all come together and be easy to press into my tart pan. That's it. It kind of has the consistency of like wet sand, and that's what you're looking for when you're making the crust for this. I'm just going to mix it all up. Sometimes the butter falls to the bottom. Take out the middle. And I love having these half-sheet pans underneath this because it makes taking things in and out of the oven so safe and easy. So if you're going to invest in kitchen supplies or equipment, you don't really need expensive stuff, but you do need some basics. And I think I'm probably going to do a YouTube episode just on kitchen basics and what you need. And you can bet your life that these are going to be at the top of the list. Okay, so if you take a measuring cup, you're going to use it. So just use it also. You're going to use it to measure out your ingredients. Just save it and press your cookie crumbs, your biscotti crumbs all throughout the pan, making sure to bring it up all around the edges, just like that. And you just press all around, and it makes a nice, even, flat layer and a beautiful crust. But before we bake this, I'm going to refrigerate it. You can refrigerate it or freeze it. If you're going to freeze it for about 15 minutes. If you're going to refrigerate it for about 30. And that's just going to help everything set and get kind of hard. So when you bake it in your oven, it just bakes, it bakes nicely. It doesn't start to fall. I'm just going to press it. Once it's all pressed, I'm going to put it in my freezer for 15 minutes, or the refrigerator if there's no space. That's what it looks like. And then we're going to bake it while it is freezing or setting in the refrigerator, whichever one you put it in. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees, and then I'll show you the next step. Okay, so our crust has chilled in the freezer for 15 minutes, and I'm going to put it in the preheated oven. The oven is ready at 350 degrees, and I'm just going to let this bake for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to take it out, let it cool, and we'll start working on our filling. Okay, so 10 minutes have passed, and my cookie biscotti crust has come right out of the oven. It looks like this. So while this cools, I'm going to put it on a wire rack, on a cooling rack, and I'm going to let it cool for about 10 minutes, and in less than that time we'll have our filling ready. So we're going to begin by heating up a cup and a half of heavy whipping cream. And we're going to heat this up until just before the boiling point. We don't really want this to boil. We just want to heat up and simmer, and it's going to make bubbles all around. And then I will just pour it over my chocolate so it can melt. Let me put a tiny bit of salt in my chocolate, just a little bit. Salt brings out all of the flavors of anything you're making. So whether you're making dessert or something savory, obviously savory things need more salt, but dessert needs just a little pinch, and that just brings all of the flavors together, and it does make a difference, but it doesn't make it salty. So while this is heating up, we're just going to wait. Let me get my whisk together. We have everything ready. And I'll show you what I mean by a simmer, what the cream needs to look like. You don't want it to come to a boil. You just want it to get bubbles all around. All right, so this, my friends, it's getting close to the simmering point, to the boiling point, I should say. It's beginning to make the bubbles all around the cream. Can you see it? Just a few more seconds for those bubbles to be everywhere, and then I'm going to turn off the heat and pour this hot cream into my chocolate. All right, so this is what it should look like, just like that. I'm going to turn off the heat and pour it right over my chocolate. And at this point, I'm just going to let it sit for 2 to 3 minutes, and it's going to soften the chocolate, and then I'll whisk it when it's nice and soft, and it'll be all melty and melted and creamy and beautiful. Okay, so it's been sitting, and the chocolate definitely softened up, so I'm just going to keep whisking this until you're going to see it turn a beautiful melted chocolate colored. Try not to I spill everything. So I'm just going to keep whisking and be a little more careful. Like that. Let me clean my hands. Such a mess we've created. See that? Look at that. I mean, take a spoonful of that and put it in some hot milk, and you'll have the best chocolate milk you've ever tasted in your whole entire life. But we can't do that because, you know, we have to focus on what we're doing, and we're making a chocolate raspberry tart, and we need to use all of this to put in that cookie shell. So now the chocolate is melted, it's come all together. I'm going to add my raspberry jam into this and whisk it up a little more until it's all come together. And this smells so good. I'm so tempted to put a spoon in this. All right, this is ready. And our chocolate biscotti crust is nice and cool. What I'm going to do is put this on the side and get my whisk and put all of this goodness in this shell. This is a simple dessert, but the wow factor is through the roof, because if you serve this to anyone, you take it out after dinner, or you're just serving an elegant dessert and you're bringing it somewhere, trust me, people will be so impressed. This is so super delicious and rich. All you need is a tiny little slice, and it's so satisfying and so good. Now, just one more thing. we can't put the raspberries on this because the chocolate definitely has to set. So I'm gonna stick this in the refrigerator and let it set for like 3-4 hours, and then it'll be ready to eat. It'll be even better if you're making this the day before and you let it set in your fridge overnight, and then you just put the raspberries on top. But I don't have that kind of time. I'm kind of in a hurry. So I'm gonna put it in my fridge for like 2-3 hours, and then it should be ready to decorate with the beautiful raspberries, and I'll show you how you're gonna do that in just a little while. All right, so my chocolate tart is ready, my chocolate raspberry tart. And if it gives you a little trouble releasing from the tart pan, all you have to do is just leave it out for a little while, or if you have a gas stovetop, turn on the flame and just sit it on there just for a few seconds, like literally count to 3 and then take it off and it'll detach, because sometimes the butter, while it's still hard, it'll kind of stay attached to the rim and it'll make it hard to take apart, to release it. So I'm putting it on this really pretty platter, cake platter. I'm going to turn my heat on and I'm going to make the apricot glaze that's going to glaze these beautiful raspberries and make them shiny and even more pretty. So I'm going to put it in here in my little pot with a little bit of water, just a couple of tablespoons, just so it can thin out. Just so it can thin out, and once it heats, it'll melt. And it'll be the perfect consistency to brush over my raspberries and glaze them beautifully. I just don't like wasting anything that's this yummy, and I love apricot jam. So it is so pretty. And it's so delicious. I think I'll just put a tiny bit more water. And let it just slowly melt. Just takes a couple of seconds. In the meantime, I'm just going to decorate my tart with these beautiful red raspberries, and I'm just going to put them all around here. Look at that. I think we can just put a few in the middle. I don't want to. You can go all around. You can put just a few raspberries in here, but I think that, to me, looks perfect. Like that. You can definitely fill the whole thing with raspberries, but I like the way it looks. I like where the chocolate, the shiny chocolate filling to show. So now what I'm going to do is just brush this raspberry. And I think I'm going to actually thin it out a little more. It's looking too thick. So I'm thinning it out just by adding a little bit more water and warming it. It should be really nice and thin. It shouldn't be thick and clumpy. You just want it to shine those raspberries. You don't want it to look like clumps of something gelatinous is stuck on it. Okay, so we're done glazing our raspberries, and I'm just going to cut into this, cut a small tiny piece, because this is super rich. That. Oh my God. Put this to the side so that way you can look at it. First of all, look into this tart, how gorgeous that looks. That is just, that should just be illegal, honestly, you guys. So I'm gonna taste this. Let me get a strawberry too. That's not a strawberry, that's a raspberry. Oh my God. This is just delicious. You guys have got to get the recipe. www.dimitrasdishes.com. The chocolate is rich, but it's lightened up by the raspberry jam that's inside of it. And that fresh raspberry on top is really tart. Oh my God, it's so, so good, you guys. Oops. So decadent. Go on the website, www.dimitrasdishes.com. Get the recipe, and trust me, make this. It's to die for. Bye, everyone. Seriously? This stuff is ridiculous.